Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the Phoenix pub by Oxford Circus. Look who joins me today. It's Patrick Van Straten and it's Michael McCubbin. How are you two doing, gentlemen?
Tired.
Tired? Well, perk yourself up.
Been to a wedding.
Come on.
I'm tired.
A bit hungover, aren't you?
No, not really. I'm just tired.
Okay, fair enough. Mikey, how are you?
I'm good. I was tired, but then I had a coffee and I'm all right. So
That's the energy.
I'm on a level now.
That's the energy I wanted to see. What is this top from? I like this top, by the way.
Thank you.
Nice.
Percival.
Oh,
Feel free to sponsor us.
yes, please do, because I
Sunday
actually also
vibes.
like some of their stuff. Today we're going to be talking about some of the most underrated players so far this season. I know a lot of you guys at home as well wanted us to talk about the Cristiano Ronaldo situation and the vacant Aston Villa managerial role, so we will come on to those. We're going to split today's episode, kind of main topic and then quick-fire questions down the middle. But we are going to start with most underrated players. We're going to try and keep it outside the top six as well, because we're aware we talk about the top six an awful lot on this channel. I want to start with goalkeepers. We'll go position by position. Goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, forwards. Any goalkeepers that you think have been slightly underrated this season or maybe having a really strong campaign?
I mean, if we're keeping outside the top six, I think we will get onto a top six keeper because he has been great recently. But outside, I feel like Robert Sanchez has always been consistently good for Brighton. I don't think he's a top level keeper, but he works really well for them. Remains to be seen, like whether he'll be as effective under De Zerbi that he was under Potter. I also think actually Dean Henderson at Nottingham Forest has been really good. Forest have generally been pretty bad, haven't they? Like last couple of months. I don't think even we thought they'd be as bad as they were, even though they were obviously turning over the squad so much. But Henderson has saved them in quite a few games now.
Seven
which is
shots
which is kind of to be expected, given that they were always going to be battling relegation. But yeah, like he once again he's putting himself in the shop window for a bigger club. So yeah, I'd probably shout at Henderson.
Yeah, I think I want to say Jose Sarr just because he's been playing for 2 months with a broken wrist, which I think is absolute insanity for a Premier League level goalkeeper to be playing for 2 months with a broken wrist. He's been okay. He's been part of a very solid Wolves defence initially under Bruno Lage that's collapsed a little bit recently. But I just can't believe you can play at that level and face the shots he's facing with a fracture in your wrist.
Can you imagine facing a shot with a broken wrist and like getting a full beam?
I know, and there was a moment against, I think it was Crystal Palace midweek, where he kind of went down into a 50-50 with Joel Ward, and Joel Ward went a little bit over the ball and kind of went studs up on the wrist, and it was like almost quite cringe-inducing. I'm not sure what it says for the Wolves number 2, but not a great deal.
It is odd though. It's something you thought something like that would have just like stopped in the 90s or something. You know what I mean?
I know, but apparently not. But he's actually not having, by underlying numbers anyway, his best campaign. Obviously, I think it was last season, wasn't it, where he was just a total freaking goal. His post-shot expected goal numbers were off the scale. I think he's about 17th this season, post-shot expected goals. So not having as good a season, but the fact he's playing with a broken wrist makes him underrated in my eyes. Anybody you want to call out?
I think Pickford deserves a little bit of a shout.
Yeah, true.
Definitely.
Especially in the early stages of the season. I think Everton are actually up and running now, and I think Lampard's doing quite an impressive job. Like, they now just look like a competent side. They're still not great, but DCL to come back. Like, there are reasons to be optimistic here. But in the early stages of the season, Pickford was keeping them in games by himself, and ahead of the World Cup, he is the in-form English goalkeeper. I mean, like, he's been much better shot-stopping wise than, say, Ramsdale this season, though Ramsdale brings other things. So definitely Pickford. He's also just been a consistent presence for them in a side which has been extremely rocked by injuries, has had a lot of new guys come in. Having that presence at the back, I think, is probably beneficial as well.
Should we talk about it? Then we are going to mention one top 6 goalkeeper, Kepa. The Kepa remontada under Potter. What's happened here? Is this as simple as Ben Roberts, the goalkeeping coach from Brighton, has come and just gone, here's the magic formula to Kepa, and now Kepa's back to his best?
I don't know. I feel like Kepa looked quite good at points last season as well, but Edouard Mendy obviously had a great 2020-21 campaign, and that his kind of reputation preceded him in that sense, I feel. Even though he was really error prone last year, was it the West Ham game where he was absolutely stinking? And I kind of feel like at the start of this season, Potter or not, I kind of feel like Mendy's time had come to have a bit of time away. And Kepa's that obviously that first season or two was horrific, but I feel like Kepa has been a lot better for a while now. And we're just kind of starting to see it on a consistent basis because this is the first time that he's actually been consistently starting. So yeah, I don't think. I mean, maybe the new regime will have had some sort of effect, but like I don't know how much can you do with a goalkeeper in 2 months with a new coach. Sure. I feel like you start to see those kind of differences over the course of maybe 6 months to a year rather than this quickly. But like he's certainly a lot more confident, which is obviously great for Chelsea because Mendy was not confident in the first month or so of the season.
Yeah, I mean the triple save against Villa was absolutely outrageous, and there was also a save against Brentford from an Ivan Toney header, looks like point blank, where he like preempts the dive, which is just out of this world. So good luck to him, I say. I mean, we've probably jinxed him now. He's probably having an absolute stinker against Manchester United when this goes out yesterday.
Yeah, but that would also be great.
It would also be pretty funny. But overall, I think Kepa's remontada is one to know. I also think Nick Pope as well continues to be absolutely superb for Newcastle, who we are going to talk about a little bit. But, boasts the best defensive record in the league right now.
I don't think he's underrated, Pope. As in, like, I think everyone agrees Pope is a good keeper.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Whereas with Kepa, like, our attitude, certainly my attitude, has been awful.
Yeah.
And Pickford as well, like Pickford, it feels like he really oscillates like between everyone being like, yeah, he's fine, and everyone saying he's the worst keeper ever. Whereas Pope, I think Pope's just always been like a good stopper, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's move on to some defenders then, because there's been some big standouts so far this season. I mentioned the Newcastle defence briefly there. I think I want to talk about Fabian Schär a little bit, who at the heart of the defence I was expecting to be replaced this season, given the arrival of Sven Botman. I thought we'd see a back two of Sven Botman and Dan Burn, despite the fact they are both left-footed. Obviously, that might not play into the thinking of some people, but I reckon it does play into the thinking of managers. And I thought we'd see a backline that included Targett and Trippier, but Fabian Schär has been absolutely outrageous and part of a Newcastle defence that is one of the best in Europe. Is one of the best in England, certainly. I mean, if you look at the underlying numbers, it's incredible. And if you look at the real numbers, it's the best defence in the league. I think they've conceded 9 goals in 11 games. I think it's the third best by expected goals against. The press up the field is amazing, and maybe that is helping them at the back because the personnel isn't necessarily the most high profile, but something's working there. And it includes Fabian Schär, who I didn't even think would be starting for Newcastle this season.
There was one point under Benitez where Fabian Schär was a really high usage defender. He was putting up about 6 tackles and interceptions a game. But you don't really want your defenders doing that because you can't get it right all the time. I'm not gonna say he doesn't deserve credit, but what you said there about the press, to me, if I'm looking at what Newcastle were doing well, I would rather give the credit to Howe and probably to the midfield a little bit more. Okay. But I know we're going to come on to some more Newcastle players later. But to me, what makes Newcastle horrible is not that when you get up against one of their defenders one-on-one, they're going to take it off you. It's more that you can't get up against their defenders one-on-one because they just stop you doing it through the midfield.
Yeah.
I think it is testament to the recruitment as well. Well, I think to probably Howe mainly in that the system allows for players who are generally seen as pretty unremarkable to like step up and perform. Like I think throughout the summer, it felt like Newcastle were really missing a trick by not going in for a right-sided centre back. Like Kanji was on the market, and there was never any no reports of them going in for him. Obviously, look at how well he's doing at City. I thought he would have been a perfect pickup for them. And we'll get onto the forward line as well because I think most people were expecting them to make another signing in the forward line too. But yeah, they're performing so well. I kind of thought they had stopped short in terms of their recruitment in the summer of being a side who could genuinely challenge the top 6, and now they do look like that. Even though they obviously they've invested a lot, but they haven't invested hard in every single position yet. So yeah, I think Schär does have to take a lot of credit for stepping up in that role.
Yeah, I think Trippier as well. I think Kieran Trippier, who has now forced himself into contention as being England's starting right back, given the injuries to Reece James, potential injury to Kyle Walker. We don't know whether he's going to recover from that groin surgery, but the numbers he's putting up are the best of his career in an attacking sense. Anyway, I think he's at over 0.2, 0.3 expected assists per 90 from right back, and obviously that's helped by the fact that he takes a lot of set pieces. But the set piece delivery is so elite right now, and I think it's going to play a major part in Gareth Southgate's thinking over selection at Qatar. think 44% of England's goals at the last World Cup came from set pieces, and they were Kieran Trippier deliveries. I think if he was choosing a right back right now and Walker and James were out, the fact that Trippier's set piece is so elite, it probably stands him ahead of Trent, who's slightly out of form, maybe even a Ben White, who a lot of people are touting as a potential player in that right back slot. So I think Kieran Trippier has been one of the most outstanding right backs in the league, and I don't think anybody is saying that really publicly. So I think that kind of makes him underrated a little bit.
I think it's testament as well to his performances that no one seems to be generally speaking, I feel like the feeling among England fans is that they're not really worried about that right back's position as well, despite those injuries. So I think there's a lot of confidence in Trippier right now.
Yeah, he's also like the ultimate FPL player. Like every week is bonus point territory.
Only just brought him back in about a month too late.
He's so good in there. Any other shouts you want to make, Pat? You mentioned Everton there. Any of the Everton back line?
To be honest with you, I don't really feel knowledgeable enough to do it. Like, I don't really think that I could pick out one of their defenders. But I mean, you mentioned Ben White there, and I do think he deserves a shout, because I was writing about this the other day, and going into the season, it didn't really look good. You're a guy who they've spent £50 million on the year previous, and now you've been displaced to right back by a 21-year-old who's never played a game for the club. Well, it helps that Saliba has been really good, so you can see why it happened. But Ben White I looked at this, and across Europe, among players who've attempted at least 20 tackles this season, Ben White has the highest tackle success rate.
Wow.
And I think that role, in a lot of ways, it's very similar to him being able to play on the right of a back three at Brighton. You see, when he sees a spot, he's able to drive into it, because he's got good pace and he clearly has an eye for it. His progressive passing's been good. When it comes to chances created, he doesn't create a lot. But of all Arsenal's fullbacks, Tomiyasu, Tierney, Zinchenko, the one creating the most chances at the moment, Ben White.
Mad.
And still incredibly influential on the ball, loads of progressive passes. So he's kind of got everything that you'd want from that position. And suddenly, from that being a bit of a weakness for Arsenal, it really looks like a position of strength. Yeah. So that's very good. And I do think Ben White, if you were picking a squad for England for the World Cup, he's probably just... The fact that he's done this in another position really cements his claim to a spot, because he can play as a kind of cultured centre-back. In a real pinch, he can drop into defensive midfield. But basically, he's got maybe that Kyle Walker thing of, he's more centre-back and Kyle Walker is more right-back, but playing on the right side of a back three,
great.
Both of them make sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that he's well in contention. I mean, I would put him in contention to be starting for England, let alone on the plane. And I think Gareth Southgate is considering whether or not to take him. I think is madness. Definitely got to go.
But Trippier is a more natural replacement. If Reece James is kind of Southgate's first choice, Trippier is the most natural replacement to him, right? Like he's got the delivery and he's got.
You play Ben White as a right centre back.
Yeah. I know, but you've also talked about how good people like Stones have been, and there's actually a lot of competition there now.
Yeah, I totally
for the
agree.
first time in a long time.
I think Ben White is a really good shout. Really, really good shout. Similarly, I know we're not going to be talking about the top six in our own clubs here, but I think Diogo Dalot has been really impressive for Manchester United this season, given that he was kind of a forgotten player over the last couple of years. He's in the last year of his contract as well, which is a little bit worrying. But most tackles, most interceptions, I think behind Bruno, most chances created. He's almost a bit of a press setter as well for United. I mean, for me, he's been outrageous under Ten Hag. His improvement and development. Yeah,
it's mad because I kind of had come to the conclusion that he just wasn't cut out to be a Premier League right back, really. He always looked more dangerous as a right-sided forward almost, just because his defensive attributes were so lacking. But now that you're starting to see an actual defensive structure emerge at United, he just looks way more at home, doesn't he?
How old is he?
I think he's still only maybe 23, is he?
Yeah, 22, 23, I think.
Well, that's an incredible asset for United to have. If he continues his current trajectory, you've suddenly got a guy who can lock down that position. Yeah. As opposed to, oh God, we've got to go out and spend another 25, 30. We're going to get gouged getting another. Well, that was the thing. Yeah, after spending 50 million on Wan-Bissaka, it just felt like such a failure. But if Dalot continues, it'll be great. Yeah. Let's move into the midfield then. Unless you got any more suggestions you want to talk about in the defence. Let's go to the midfield then, where I want to bring up Philip Billing. Philip Billing at Bournemouth the moment. Phil Billing is just, the goal contributions. I think it's 4 in his last 5 games, and then prior to Gary O'Neill taking over, 0. He's just everywhere. They're in mid-table. What are Bournemouth doing in mid-table?
No right to be there, but what I think he's playing in this more advanced position, Phil Billing, but his defensive output is still huge. Like, he's so impressive. Bournemouth.
He's so imposing in the box, isn't he?
So
like, you don't want to be
imposing.
defending him at set pieces.
When the ball gets cut back or like he's arriving late, his timing of runs seems superb. Bournemouth just look dangerous. Like, I've been really impressed by Gary O'Neill's
Dominic
management.
Solanke as well. I know he's not a midfielder, but it's so good to finally see him come good in the Premier League as well. Like, he's been great off the right.
I know that like Gary O'Neill was kind of pushing this chat about I not thought about the permanent job. It's not even been mentioned, but the form.
Yeah,
it's got to be under consideration that Gary O'Neill takes his job on a permanent basis.
Deserves a shout for it. But the Billing thing, it's actually very similar to what you've seen with someone like Xhaka this season.
Yeah,
that suddenly this guy's popping up in the box, or even I think when you've seen the best of Fred, it's often been when he's bursting into that space kind of between the 10 and the winger. So it's kind of it's an interesting kind of tactical trend at the moment where you see these people who are maybe not seen as the most cultured midfielders popping up on the edge of the box or just inside, and you just get your guy who's a really clean ball striker in there, and every time he gets the ball, it's worrying. He hits it so cleanly, so hard. I don't know. I'm kind of delighted for Philip Billing because he always had kind of sneakily good defensive numbers, but never anything in attack like this.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see like Bournemouth and Fulham in those positions where I feel like Marco Silva's developed a really good side in there. And there's some midfielders to talk about there too. I think Andreas Pereira, the forgotten man of Manchester United, binned off to Brazil, where didn't really impress there and was of course booed. Was it in the final of the Copa Libertadores when he made that mistake, or at least deep into the Copa Libertadores when he made that mistake? Went for 10 mil, and I think most United fans were like, oh, it's done so well to get a bit of money for him there. That seems like a great pickup for Fulham now. Yeah,
I thought it was one of the worst signings of the summer, and he's just completely proved me wrong. Fantastic. Like, just looks really alive in that system. Again, like, you do have to give credit to the manager in that sense for gelling him so quickly. But like, I think Fulham's attack in general has just looked better than I thought it would. I think it obviously helps when like Mitrovic is finally coming properly good in the Premier League, but yeah, it just looks like he's really, really enjoying his football. And I think it's one of those things as well, whereas I feel like Fulham is just the perfect level for Pereira as well. He's got like a really clearly defined role. Like, he's playing a lot more centrally. Like at United, he was often being played on the right, where like doesn't really suit his skill set because he's not the quickest player. Like, I think he's really looks really settled. And
when you put him alongside like João Palhinha, who has just been...
In fact, I think that's the key, isn't it? I think Palhinha is actually the key to a lot of Fulham players.
100%. I think the week when Palhinha was banned, like, you saw, wow, okay, this is the difference here between Fulham with and without Palhinha, who, I mean, is at this stage like a defensive behemoth in that squad, isn't he? I think he, at one stage, was putting up the most tackles in the entirety of Europe.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you kind of look at him and you're like, this wasn't that hard to do.
I
like Palhinha. I think he deserves credit, but he's not like a world-beating defensive midfielder. He's just like a good, competent defensive midfielder. And they were like, right, we're going up to a tougher league. We should probably get a better defensive midfielder. All clubs getting promoted should always do that.
But why didn't other clubs look at him?
I know, it's straight. Well, I think there was some competition for Palhinha, but I think this summer as well, there were so many exciting midfielders coming out of the Portuguese league that he was a bit older, and he was a little bit less fancied because he was just a defensive midfielder. He wasn't, seen as an expansive passer like Nunes. He wasn't seen as a kind of all-rounder and dribbler like Vitinha. He wasn't seen as a potential superstar creator like Fabio Vieira. This was just a guy who was going to do a job really well, and now he's doing a job really well. Yeah, he does have that dog in him.
He seriously does. Everton midfielders as well.
Onana,
Iwobi.
Iwobi, what a player! Like, Iwobi's doing what he's always done, which is he gives you more defense than you expect. And he is incredibly secure on the ball. He's great at bursting through challenges because he's faster than the average midfielder. He's probably slower than the average winger, but he's stronger than the average winger. So it's one of those things where he is in this weird kind of hybrid spot. And I think that's why sometimes in his career, it's been hard to find a place for him because you're like, he's not quite a 10. He's not really a winger. He's obviously not a striker. He doesn't get enough shots. He's not a defensive midfielder. But now, with Onana there kind of to give them some security, Iwobi gets to have that freedom and just be a kind of ball progressor. And to be fair to Frank Lampard, and actually Frank Lampard has done this throughout his career, he is quite willing to try unconventional things.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of Brendan Rodgers in him in that regard. And I don't know, like I just think it's great to see Iwobi become good because I've always believed in his talent. And now he looks like a £40 million player, which is more than you could say for the last few seasons.
What about Amadou Onana as well?
Yeah. Unreal.
Big
Unreal.
boy.
Yeah, like
Big boy.
the fact that, I mean, again, like another player who's just like adapted really, really quickly, so young as well.
Young.
And obviously, like at Lille, he was having to do a lot of work, but I don't think he was playing in a much more defensive system at Lille, and it's been a kind of that kind of 4-4-2 there was very well established for a number of years after Gautier. So I didn't quite expect him to offer so much going forward as he has done as well. Obviously, he's defensively fantastic, but like could have got a couple of goals against was it Spurs on the weekend? Like just looks he's just incredibly imposing and great at bursting through while providing that security as well. Like,
and
really
also
impressed.
I've seen a few interviews with him where he comes across as like the best bloke. Like,
Really?
just seems like a really
That's cool.
nice guy. Like he speaks 5 languages. He's studying for a diploma.
What is he? 21?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
21.
mad.
Like he's
All right.
extremely intelligent. Obviously, you said great height, great physique, but also very, very intelligent on the ball.
Surprisingly cultured on the ball.
Yes, so much more than I was expecting. And obviously West Ham were very interested in him, weren't they? To the tune of £33 million, I think. And, just imagine, in my head, imagining like Declan Rice, Onana, instead of Declan Rice and Souček with Paqueta sat in front of them, it would have been like some midfield free. But Everton have got an absolute star in their hands there, I think. I know that it wasn't the cheapest deal at £33 million, but struggle to see a world which, if he doesn't move on, they don't make profit, and if he stays, it isn't a massive success. So I think it's a very good deal. I also want to touch on a couple of Leeds players here. I think Tyler Adams and Mark Rocker have done a really good job at Leeds.
Mark Rocker.
Both of them, like I think they complement each other really well. With Tyler Adams' energy and his pressing ability, and Mark Rocker's ability on the ball and his sort of pass completion and how steady he is. I do think I'm slightly sceptical about Leeds. I am slightly sceptical about Leeds.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not at all.
Okay, this is good because
Okay.
I actually really liked Jesse March's work towards the back end of last season. I think he did a really good job taking over from Bielsa and how quickly he managed to get that team to get results. This season, whenever I've watched them, I know that they were great against Arsenal. They were fabulous against Arsenal, and they were actually pretty good against Chelsea as well. But the other games where they're expected to get stuff or need to do more, it's really.
I mean, they were
flat.
poor Thursday night, weren't they? And I think there was some unrest among the crowd.
It's really flat. Yeah, they booed off on Thursday, and it's never a good sign when when the manager comes out after the game and says that I'm confident in keeping my job. Like that's always a worry to me. That's like the first sign, isn't it? It's like the first domino of falling of like, oh, that means there is some pressure coming from above. Potentially.
Although at the same time, Jesse Marsh is just like I feel like Jesse Marsh will just speak his
He's
mind
very
on
honest.
anything. That's the way
he
he's very, very open. So like. Maybe he's just putting his thoughts out there, but yeah, I mean, I'm really happy for Mark Rocker because he looked so good in a really bad Espanyol side a few years ago. That Bayern Munich move, I think, was a bit of a bad turn in his career because it's just impossible to break into that team, and like you're never going to really make a difference to a team like that as a deep line midfielder when you've got Kimmich and Goretzka there. Like if you're playing alongside one of them, you're not going to be the one who's progressing the ball the most. Whereas at Leeds, he's kind of become that guy again. Is it like 6.6 balls into the final third a game?
Yeah,
two more than Calvin Phillips' best number in his time
Which
at
is
Leeds.
crazy.
And in the Premier League, progressive passes per 90, it goes Trent, Kevin De Bruyne, Mark Rocker.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That is crazy. They've been a little bit stitched up by Bamford's finishing as well, haven't they?
But I think
Well,
it is a finishing.
I think that's the problem, though, isn't it? There is a problem of not having a consistent centre forward there. Obviously, Bamford is injury prone and hasn't looked the same, has he? Let's be honest, since coming back from that long term spell out. Rodrigo's obviously been injured as well. So, and they looked at their best when Rodrigo was playing at the start of the campaign too. So. Yeah, I feel like it is just a problem with, it's a bit like what we've seen with Brighton in recent years. There's just not that consistent centre-forward threat, whereas, when Bamford was firing on all cylinders in their first season back, they looked fantastic. So I think it is that. And also, we're yet to see Aronson and Sinisterra put up, consistent, numbers yet, although they do look very impressive in spells.
And they tried to address the striker thing in the summer. They tried to get Arnaud Kalimuendo off PSG. Yeah. So I think it might be something that we see them go and try and remedy in January.
They tried to get Hakpo in as well.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Like they should have beaten Arsenal. They were comfortably the best side. There have been a couple of draws they've had this season where they've been comfortably the better side. If those turn into wins, that's a huge difference because there haven't been that many games. And you've got to bear in mind as well, this is a team that lost what everyone would have agreed was their best midfielder and their best attacker in the summer. And yet they're going to stay up. And they've got a young team. They've got a bunch of guys who are going to grow together. They've also got that midfield pair who have just met, basically. And they already look great. So you look at them and you think, so long as they give Marsh enough time, I'm not concerned. And let's be honest.
That's my worry, though. Are they going to?
Yeah, but they wanted Marsh. Even when Bielsa went, the rumour was that Bielsa was going to go that summer because they wanted Marsh. And they actually gave Bielsa longer than, understandably, given what he'd done for the club. But they gave Bielsa longer than a lot of other teams would have, given that at the time they were shipping like 4 goals a game. So, I don't know. I don't think that this Leeds hierarchy is stupid. I think they really like Jesse Marsh. And I like Jesse Marsh. I think he's good for the league.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's see what happens with Leeds over the next couple of weeks. I'm just slightly concerned.
I want things to turn around because I really like this Leeds team. I think they're cool.
Let's go to the forwards then, because one name stands above them all. Surely Miggy Almiron.
Miggs.
Big Miggs. The ultimate write-off player, I think. Even I was saying, I'm not sure.
Even you?
Because
the world's least knee-jerk man.
No, but I tend to like players like Miguel Almiron who are just flying around the pitch and just back. Yeah. But I was saying, I was kind of like, it's not enough to just be doing that.
He's also been here for a long time as well. I think it'll be 4 years since he signed in January. So it's understandable to think that, but it is just like. But the forget he was playing under Steve Bruce for 3 of those years.
The quality of goals as well, the quality of goal midweek, but also the volley away at. I can't remember who the volley was away at, but it's definitely goal of the season so far.
Yeah,
outside of his left foot.
It was kind of like you see him think about it, change his mind, and then change his mind back, and then he volleys it, and then it goes in. It's kind of amazing.
He's just playing the best football of his career, though, isn't he? He's undroppable for Eddie Howe right now because he's not only a press setter, but he is also contributing. I think he's at over 0.4 non-penalty expected goals and assists per night.
Well, previously his best in his time at Newcastle he's been like a 0.2 expected goals and assists per 90 player, which is bad. And that's like an okay fullback.
Yeah.
And now he's doubled that. So I think he's on 5 goals for the season now, right? And he's still pressing as much as he ever did. He makes 3 tackles and interceptions a game, which is basically if a fullback did that, you'd say, yeah, that's pretty good.
Solid. Yeah.
He's also added about a shot a game. He's dribbling more. His shot accuracy's up. He's actually creating less, so he's playing as much more of kind of a forward.
What's happened though? Is this Eddie Howe?
I feel like he's kind of just I remember when they signed him from Atlanta, and I know it's the MLS, but I remember seeing clips of him and stuff, and it genuinely felt like he possessed what it took to be he was easily the best player in the MLS, playing for one of the best teams in the MLS at the time as well, I must add. But clearly he was just a really bad fit for a Steve Bruce side where Sam Maximan was still magic under Steve Bruce, but Almiron never quite had, he's never had that kind of technical excellence that Almiron, that Sam Maximan has on the ball. But what he always did possess was really hard work, loads of pace. In under Eddie Howe, that's just those are the perfect attributes that you need as a forward.
Yeah.
But I think what was particularly impressive is that this Newcastle attack still looks really good despite not having Sam Maximan there, which a year ago would have been they're doomed to relegation if that happens a year ago. But now he's just really stepped up. And again, it's one of those things I thought Newcastle were idiots for not signing a right winger in the summer. It felt like they were really missing out on something there, and yet. It's clear that Howe just had confidence in Almiron to hold that position down.
Absolutely. Crystal Palace. Do you want to talk about Wilf Zaha potentially? He is putting up the best numbers of his Premier League career.
Yeah, but it just feels like Wilf Zaha is now currently playing as the player everybody has always claimed Wilf Zaha is.
Yeah. But he is out of contract in the summer.
And actually, as his career's gone on, that's been truer and truer. I think, especially when he's been more of a forward than he's been a winger. That said, the bit you know the attack that ended with Edouard with the overhead
Oh, my
kick
word.
that almost went in the other day. The fact that it starts, Zaha is
Shrugs 4 blokes off.
but he's instrumental in it twice, right?
know.
He holds off a bunch of guys early on, and then he gets pinged a pass from the other wing, I think from Elise, and like cuts inside, like plays past. I was just like, this is absolutely outrageous. This is the player that I wish Zaha had always been.
Yeah.
But
Would you pick him up as an Arsenal fan? Free transfer, available in the summer. If he doesn't sign that contract at Palace, I feel like there's going to be a lot of European level suitors going, okay, he's free. He's a solid wildcard option to have coming off the bench.
I think he could probably get a longer contract going to, say, Italy or something. I don't think Arsenal would give him, because he'll be 30, won't he? I don't think Arsenal would give him, say, a 3-year deal or something. Whereas I actually think, a club like Inter or someone, you could see it, or even a Milan or something, you could kind of see them saying, yeah, we'll give you a couple of years and at a really good salary. Because bear in mind, his salary's high. Who's going to come in and pay him over 100k a week for multiple years? That's my one concern. Because also he's got tons of games in his legs.
I kind of hope he stays. I would really like him just to stay at Palace. Like, he's like Mr. Palace for me, like Wilf Zaha. So I kind of would like to see him.
And Palace
are
also way better now than they ever were
when
he was dragging them through games, weren't they? Like, and as a result, he looks better, doesn't he? Like, it feels weird because it feels like, generally speaking, I feel like he's not making as many headlines as he was like a few years ago in terms of his performances. But that's just because like Palace are better, so like he's not the only player like putting up good numbers in that team. But like everything's been elevated as a result.
I could see him at Spurs,
Yeah,
I could see him at Spurs.
I could as well.
Under Conte, I think that'd be pretty
Good Son
interesting.
backup, isn't it?
Really good Son backup.
All right, let's talk about. I want to talk about Ivan Toney. I actually still think he's underrated at this stage.
He's so good, man.
Given that he is on course to score 32 goals this season.
What? Is that in all competitions, I'm
competitions,
assuming?
yeah.
Oh, right, okay, whatever.
He's the third highest scorer in the Premier League in 2022. Behind, I think it's Son and Kane. Like, he's absolutely outrageous to be doing those numbers at Brentford. I know a lot of them are penalties. They are.
But he is also a great
He's
penalty
also
taker.
an unbelievable penalty taker. Yeah, it's 20 from 20 for Brentford. I've never seen a technique like it. Actually, I thought his analysis of the penalty taking technique on Monday Night Football was so good, where they did the split screen and they zoomed in on his eyes and he doesn't look at the ball once. And he was like, why would I need to look at the ball? This just don't move. So I'll just look at the keeper, and when he moves, I'll just put it in the opposite corner. His technique is frightening. He should have scored against Chelsea with the header, but he also works hard off the ball. Like, he creates chances as well. He creates openings for others in the side.
He's a really skillful player.
Really good player. Like, I think his numbers at Brentford must be intriguing teams that are looking for number 9s in the summer.
Would you be at all put off by some of the off-field stuff?
I don't think so. I actually don't think so, because I feel like that is partly down to the fact I kind of like the fact he thinks he's better than Brentford a little bit in his head. Maybe he's confident enough to go, I could be playing at a high level here.
I think the thing is with Tony as well, like he's not like super young anymore. So if he's got to get a big move, this is his opportunity.
He's 26, isn't he? I think he's 26, 27. Yeah. Like, there must be clubs, i.e. Manchester United, who are thinking about potentially lining up a striker even next summer or in January and going, okay, yes, there are options elsewhere across the continent, but there aren't loads. The striker market is quite thin, as we saw in the summer when teams were really struggling to find strikers unless they like pre-prep them like Gabby Jesus or Erling Haaland. Tony becomes a viable option. How much he would cost to get out of Brentford, I think, wouldn't be cheap, but the numbers are frightening at the moment.
He's a great player.
The numbers are really, really good. Like, they're some of the Premier League's best numbers of any striker not named Erling Haaland. So I think he is underrated just because of that. Like, people aren't talking about him as getting that big move, and he definitely deserves it. Do we want to talk about Scamacca?
I do not feel. I've not watched West Ham, and there's a reason for that.
I feel like Scamacca. I just feel like I haven't seen Scamacca enough as well, because was it three full 90s he's played?
Yeah,
like a little
I
bit
think
more,
it's
like,
five. I think
yeah,
it's five
okay.
starts now. He's had, but he's recently started to. Connection with Bowen there. Trossard, potentially people were mentioning in a lot in reply to
I think he was super, like, I think this season he's finally getting his flowers, isn't he? But like, he's been so underrated for so long.
Yeah.
And it's, I know in some ways it's kind of surprising to see him linked with Chelsea, because I kind of thought like Potter was just gonna like turn one of their attackers into a kind of Trossard kind of player. Like Mount has quite similar qualities, doesn't he? But like, but yeah, I love Trossard. I think he's the one. he's the one Brighton player who every time I've watched them for the last 2 years, he always does something that I'm like, wow, that was just great.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I even saw links to Atletico Madrid this week for Trossard, which I was like,
that'd
stay
be
clear,
horrible.
stay clear, please, no, Leandro. All right, so those were some of the underrated players we've seen so far this season. Let us know who you think in the comments below has been your favourite underrated player. Let's move on to quick fire questions, because I know a lot of guys at home and girls wanted us to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo first and foremost, Villa, and a couple of other things in here too. Let's just start with Cristiano. Mikey, you're a United fan as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been a fan of Cristiano at United almost ever since the start, to be honest. But at least last season, towards the back end, I felt like I was being proved wrong. Like, he was genuinely fantastic. One of the two probably best players of the club towards the end of last season. He was, actually dragging the team through games at points, and he was working quite smartly off the ball, working hard off the ball, and scoring a lot. But then obviously just kind of ruins everything in the summer, and the club have to take a little bit of blame for that as well. I don't think the club were active enough in trying to find a suitor for him. Equally, I don't think there was a suitor out there for him who could afford his wages. So in some ways that's a bit of a moot point. His behaviour over the last few weeks has just been awful, hasn't it? So embarrassing for him to walk off the pitch and leave the game during undoubtedly United's best performance of the season under Ten Hag, after refusing to come on as a sub. Is completely bizarre, and I've never really rated his kind of off-pitch character that much anyway. To see him do that wasn't that surprising, but then to hear that he had refused to come on as a sub, I think that is actually quite out of character for him. I don't really know what he wants from the situation. He joined a club that were very, very much in transition, expecting to be challenging for the title, and now that he didn't get his way in the summer, he feels that it's just right to act in this way. It's just completely bizarre. Just embarrassing.
It's a little bit bizarre, isn't it? Given, I kind of agree with you. I think a certain portion of blame lies with the club not being able to come to a decisive decision in the summer, even if it had come down to the fact that he wants to leave this much, then Hag's happy to let him go. Let's mutual termination of the contract, allow him to go on a free, and then he can find his own club. It's not our problem anymore. That would probably have been the smart, decisive decision to make. That never happened. As a professional, it's now your job to turn up to training on time, play games to the best of your ability, and if the manager asks you to do something, you do it. Yeah. So to see him not do those things, I think Ten Hag couldn't have dealt with it better. I think he's dealt with the situation from him not going on tour with the club in the summer, to refusing to come on as a sub, to walking out of the stadium against Rayo Vallecano in pre-season. He's dealt with every situation perfectly, and it's almost given him more power in the dressing room, I think, with how he's dealt with the situation, because it's shown to everybody else, I'm not standing for any nonsense. If Cristiano can have this stuff taken away from him, any of us can too.
And you compare that to last season, when Ronaldo was always the story, and it seemed to be genuinely becoming a problem in the changing room. When you hear reports that the players hardly noticed that he wasn't there after the game against Spurs, they were just so happy with the victory. It speaks volumes. I think he has done everything right, and yet Ten Hag is still somehow getting criticism over this. It's that he's had so many different situations to deal with Ronaldo, and also every time he's come out and been no, I genuinely think he's a useful player to have. I do want him to be at the club and still use him. I think he's dealt with it. Yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
Very well.
I mean, I think you guys have said all the kind of intelligent stuff about it, but from an outsider's perspective, United have been better without him. It is as simple as that, and it doesn't make him look like an attractive prospect for any other club that are going to take him on. This is how you end up doing something I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in, say, Brazil or something next year, because I think a lot of the bigger clubs around Europe now would say, no, this is not. Why would we do this? This guy is not. Yeah. He's not going to actually contribute to the team, so he probably needs to go somewhere where his merchandising power is the most important thing. I don't know. It just feels like he's shot himself in the foot. And actually, the one thing that Ronaldo had during his career that neutrals could like about him, because nothing else about him was likable, was the fact that he notoriously was an incredible worker. Yeah. Worked his arse off. and now it's just like he doesn't care. So I don't know. I've never particularly liked him, but I just think it's silly for him when he could finally give something to the club and take on a kind of elder statesman role rather than just
He's
caring
37
about
now.
what he
I
does
think he's 37.
Did he think he was going to start every game until he retired, and that when he retired he'd still be like scoring 25 goals a season? What did he think was going to happen?
Yeah, but I think in some ways this is the first time that he's really been in a situation like this where a manager's been like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like, could you imagine like at any other point in his career being made to play, being made to train alone? Like, in some ways, like, I do think, although he has acted so petulantly over the last few months, you would still, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back in the second half of the season if he doesn't leave in January. That is,
would you get rid of him in January?
I'd be absolutely happy to. Yeah, I would be like, United do have issues at centre forward at the moment, but at the same time, Ronaldo has not looked like the solution to any of those problems so far. And yes, like, Martial's injury record is concerning, but at the same time, Rashford has, I think, performed pretty well at centre forward, even if he's yet to, like, consistently find his shooting boots. I think off the ball he has been fantastic in that position. So yeah, I would be, but if, like, I think it will still be really difficult to get rid of him in January. So, like, if we weren't to, I still can kind of see Ronaldo coming back and maybe just accepting. Like, at some point he has to accept it, and, like, he can't just be lounging around whining for the rest of the season. It's just not going to work. And I think for his own public image, he wouldn't want to do that. So I can perhaps see him coming back in the second half of the season. Perhaps, maybe a little bit like we saw last term, and actually, like, focus more and just, become more of an asset, become more of a good bench option. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see that. And, either way, Ten Hag will have played it right in that sense.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it's going to be really difficult to get him out in January unless there is that mutual termination of contract. It might end up being a bit of an Aubameyang situation, almost, where, Arsenal accepted they were going to be short up front for 6 months and kind of made do, and they didn't make the Champions League, yes, but overall as a squad, I think that brought the team really close together as a unit, didn't it? And I think that has actually paid dividends this season with the closeness of the team, and I think most fans backed that Aubameyang decision, although there were a few, obviously, pundits and stuff that would say, well, they would have got top 4 with Aubameyang. Overall, that was the right call. It was the right call to move him on, and I think probably you could say the same for Cristiano. Let's move on to Villa then, because Steven Gerrard has left his post. He's been sacked after, I think it was 8 wins in 34 across the course of 2022 so far.
I think he's got you guys worse win percentage. I was saying earlier, worse win percentage than Gary Neville had at Valencia, which is pretty damning.
Yeah,
oh boy.
The wheels have fell off, haven't they? The wheels have fell off big time since let's just be honest. Since Mick Beale's left the club, the wheels have come off, haven't they? Who's doing a stunning job at QPR and is now favourite to replace Steven Gerrard at Villa.
Is he actually the favourite?
Yeah, no, he's rejected the Wolves job.
Did he reject the Wolves job?
Rejected the Wolves job, but he's now favourite. Well, at the time of recording, favourite.
I was very tickled by Wolves talking to Nuno.
Yeah,
that really made me laugh. Also, I saw an amazing.
The fans still love Nuno at Wolves, though. Like, they would absolutely welcome Nuno back.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Like, he did bring them up and, like, kind of made them a destination. But I actually saw an amazing article on the BBC website this morning which said, Steven Gerrard, his time at Villa, he was undermined by results and performances. And I was like, yeah, that's all of it. Like, if results aren't good and performances, that's your analysis. Results aren't good and performances aren't good. The other team scored more goals. Yeah, that'll do it.
It's kind of down to him as well, isn't it? That's something that he generally, should have.
That is his job. Over. Like, he's not cooking the sausages, is he? Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel for him a little bit because I do think that, I think when he came in, he had kind of the backroom staff he wanted, and I do think that there were really good signs kind of under the hood. They just didn't get the results they deserved. If they'd got those results, then maybe he'd have been able to hang on a bit longer. But it's possible that it is too early in his career and he needs to develop a bit, or that if he doesn't have the right people around him, the things that he is good at are not enough to make the side good. He needs other people to, say, run training or whatever it might be, which I know was the rumour about Mick Beale, that he was kind of like in charge of actual kind of day-to-day training, and that Gerrard is playing a more conventional kind of old-fashioned manager role, I suppose. Like Ferguson.
Which is quite surprising, isn't it, given that his experience before Rangers was with, the Liverpool under 18s. Like, I just kind of assumed that he would be a training ground manager.
Yeah, but I think Mick Beale as well, what he has in his armoury is, the experience of being assistant manager at Sao Paulo, fluent in Portuguese, like little stuff like this where... good
at integrating new players.
Where you've got a squad that is very diverse.
That would have helped at Wolves.
Yeah, it would have helped at Wolves, and I'm pretty sure that's probably one of the reasons they were quite interested in him. But right, I think that's enough for those 2 questions anyway. Let's do one final personal one, which was sent in. It's just best cereal.
Interesting. I've not eaten like a big cereal for a long time. What a big cereal, like
mainstream cereal.
not mainstream, just like one which has like any flavour at all. Like, I eat bran flakes because they're really, really cheap, and I just put like a banana and a load of seeds over them, and that carries the flavour for me.
That's great.
But like when I was a kid, I was thinking because I saw that question before. I was thinking like when I was a kid, I feel like all the cereals I ate when I was a kid were like, I wouldn't want to eat them. I used to always eat Wheatos. Do you remember Wheatos? The chocolate things. I feel like they were like, I loved them for some reason, but they are kind of disgusting. But then I thought actually the best cereal in terms of like taste and great Weetabix minis with the little chocolate chips.
They are good.
They're so good because they retain their crunch. That's the main thing for me.
Cinnamon Graham is probably for me.
Okay,
I think Golden Grahams are better than Cinnamon.
I don't know. I prefer cinnamon. I prefer cinnamon.
I think Golden Grahams are the best. And Shreddies are good. My baby eats Shreddies, so I eat Shreddies with her. And also, I got some recently. This is like the fucking lamest thing I've ever heard. But I got some. It's called Surreal, and it's high protein cereal.
Oh,
so it's like bodybuilder cereal.
Gains.
And it's got no added sugar, but it's actually really delicious. So yeah, I recommend that. Again, feel free to sponsor us, Surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that wraps it up for another week of Sunday Vibes. If you enjoyed this episode, please do hit the like button, hit subscribe, and if you want to plug.
Is there something I should plug? You pointed at me really decisively.
Whatever you want, mate.
Nah.
Nothing, hey, Mikey?
Continental Club. On Friday, we spoke about... Oh, God, I always forget what we've spoken about. I only filmed it a day ago. But yeah, that was good. We were speaking... I can't remember. But it's good. Continental Club's always good. Stat Wars as well. I think it was Zach versus Henry came out yesterday on Eurofootball Daily, so go and check that out.
Yeah, go and watch
podcast, check that out.
Yeah, don't watch Pat's podcast and don't subscribe to his
podcast
Patreon.
out. Sponsor me.
There we go.
Feel free to sponsor us.
All right, that's it. See you later. Bye.